And welcome to the YouTube channel and to the show Transparent. And
Thank you. Mhm.
Liane Wood, welcome. So glad that you could join us today.
Thanks for having me. Hmm.
And we go way back, don't we? It's
You do, yes.
my God, like over 20 years, I would think now. So
Yes.
when we were both little wee children, of course, right at that point. Yeah. And you are a therapist
I am.
and, and you live in Belleville.
Yes.
And you live there with your husband and two daughters, correct?
One has left the nest and one is still with us.
Oh, okay. All right.
Hmm.
So you're kind of in the same time or age category as we are as well too with our two daughters.
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty close. Yeah. 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 Your daughters are a little bit older than mine. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
And with this show, Transparent, what we're trying to do is interview and have a conversation with therapists that
Hmm.
and to get their perspective on the challenges of COVID-19 and the whole quarantine challenge. To hear from you personally as well as professionally what you're noticing with your clients. So to get started, why don't you tell us a little bit about your practice and who you work with?
Sure. Yeah, so I'm a registered psychotherapist and my practice is in Belleville. And I am a part of a multidiscipline practice in Belleville called We Thrive Wellness Center.
Yeah.
And so I work alongside a number of different practitioners, massage therapists, a naturopath doctor, um, life coach, esthetician, all kinds of fun people that I love to work with, and
Nice.
it's a great environment to be in. Is I'm not on my own. I'm supported by all of them as well, and it's such a warm, welcoming place. It doesn't have a clinical feel to it at all. So I really enjoy that. I think my clients appreciate that as well. They don't feel that they're coming into a clinic
Mm.
to for therapy. So it's worked out really well. I've been there so far 2.5 years,
Yes.
and I'm absolutely loving it. I'm missing them terribly right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I was
Mhm.
picking up on that. You were focusing in on the group aspect of it, and now here we are in with the inability really to face at least the face-to-face content.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're missing
Mhm.
them. I'm sure they're missing you as
Absolutely.
well. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And your family. Talk a
Yes.
little bit about your family, Leanne. What has the adjustment been like for you and for your wife, for your husband, sorry, and for your kids?
Yeah.
You're
Um, Well,
living.
my daughter that lives with us, she's an essential worker, so
Oh, okay.
she's still very much working full time and overtime hours right now,
Yeah.
um, and so that is continuing on. And my husband right now is a full time student. He's pursuing his master's degree,
Yeah.
and that's through online course. So that hasn't been much. It hasn't been too much of a change for him either. So out of the three of us at home, I'm the one that has experienced the most change
Yeah.
because I'm not going to my office in Belleville every day. I'm working from home, and so that's required a little bit of adjustment here in the house, of
Yeah.
course. As I've switched to doing sessions from home, making sure that I have the privacy that I need for my sessions and that. But everybody is pretty accommodating here at the house, and so it's been working out well.
It really is important to have that privacy too when you're working with clients, isn't it? So
Absolutely.
how are you with your home? Were you able to have a dedicated area?
Yeah, I do. We have a room that isn't used for too much. It's actually the room that I'm in right now.
Yeah.
And so for the most part, when I'm working, I'm actually the only person on this level of the house.
Okay.
And so, I've maintained confidentiality that way.
Yeah.
I also always wear headphones so that, should somebody need to come onto this floor, happen to walk past the room while I'm in session, the only thing that they could possibly hear would be something that I'm saying. They'd never actually be able to hear anything that my clients are saying. So, taking some steps like that to try and make things as best as I can, confidential and private.
Yeah, that is really important. And
Mm-hmm.
you have enough internet bandwidth to share amongst all of you?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm finding with that within our home, and having um, three girls here
Mm-hmm.
plus my wife, and we're all using the internet at different times, but
Yeah.
using a lot of bandwidth, so it can be even a little bit tricky in that way too. But
Yeah.
but here we are this morning, we're meeting, and the internet is great, so fantastic.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So there are certainly a lot of considerations, aren't there, to going online. So your family is adjusting well, so you say. What are you
Yeah.
noticing with your clients?
With my clients, it's a real mixed bag, Kevin. For some people, this change is actually a welcome change. People who were really stressed with work, or had a lot of social anxiety, those types of things. This is actually a bit of a reprieve, a slowdown.
Okay.
And so some of them are actually doing better, which is nice. And then, obviously there are other clients who this is really, really challenging, this adjustment to, the physical distancing, the stay at home, and the missing the physical contact, or like seeing people in person as opposed to just online and by video. So it's a real mixed bag. And I would say in the last week, I've started to even notice that for the clients where this has been a bit of a reprieve, that even they're starting to get a little bit antsy,
Yeah.
with being home all the time, this is great because I don't have those pressures and I've been home long enough.
Yeah. It's like too
Right.
much of a good thing is
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Mhm.
age category of of your clientele that you typically work with.
I typically work with about age 16 and up.
Yeah.
So, mostly like later adolescents and then through adults and
Okay.
seniors.
Are you
Hmm.
noticing differences in how the teens might be handling this in contrast to some of your older clients?
Yeah, the teens are really stressed. Yeah, teens and young adults are really stressed. And I think that it has a big piece of it is the not being able to see their friends in person, not being able to hang out in person. Um,
Yeah.
and then the school pressures too, right? Of having to adapt to an all online learning environment is
Hmm.
really challenging. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Hmm.
to be thrust into it in the middle. You're going in one direction, and then, okay, the whole world and the whole education system, now we're going to go this way.
Suddenly, without warning,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Hmm.
takes a lot of adapting, and it's hard to do.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And you're right with this. This is what I'm noticing, the social aspect of it, not really being able to hang out. And from my understanding, there's a lot of breaking of the rules with
Yeah.
friends wanting to just go and hang out, just needing some of that social connection again.
Hmm.
Yeah. What do you think the greatest challenges are right now for your clients, just overall speaking? What are some of your observations?
Hmm. Um, I think the one of the biggest challenges is not having an end date in sight. For this, I think that is one of the biggest challenges. Is that this physical distancing, this stay at home. This is the way it is for now and for the foreseeable future. There's not a it's not, there's nothing like, well, this is the last week I have to do this, and next Monday
Yeah,
there's
we
just,
go back to normal.
yeah, there because there's so much uncertainty as to how long this will be going on. I think that is one of the biggest challenges. I think at the beginning, people were, sort of saying, okay, well, this will just be for a short time. And so, you make the adjustments for a short period of time, anticipating and expecting that it's going to be a short time. So then for it to continue on and, end up being a protracted length of time, then you kind of shift how you're changing and how you're adapting sort of into another mode of, okay, so if this is going to go on longer, what is that going to look like?
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of the I would say overall, the biggest challenge right now that is facing a lot of people is, not knowing what the end date is and sort of looking at this and saying, well, if this is the way things are going to need to be for the next little while, how do I really make this work for myself?
It reminds me of the grief process.
Absolutely.
We talk about in the different stages per se of grief, and one of them is trying to make sense, right? Trying to make sense of, and then acceptance. And we seem to be now moving into that collectively, okay, accepting that things are different, but what does that mean? Not really sure, and wanting to go back to the old way, and probably feeling in our heart resentful in some ways that we're not going back, but also being forced to accept that things are different.
It's very much a grief process.
Yeah. So how would you work with your clients then to help them through this grief process?
I actually oftentimes identify it as grief and say, this is grief. It's not the loss of a loved one per se, but it's a loss of your way of life. It's a loss of the things that were normal to you, loss of going to your job, loss of, going out to a restaurant, loss of going out with your friends. There's so much loss that's happening here right now. And I'm finding that identifying it as a loss and using that languaging and saying this is grief is very helpful to clients to be able to recognize that this is grief. And I'm in a way, I'm in a period of mourning. And then again, what we just said, trying to figure out that, if this is loss, if this is grief, then it's not going to look the way that it once did. And how do I want it to look? And what is going to work for me? And just as, when we go through the process of grief, of the loss of a loved one, sort of trying to restructure our lives and sort of, find a way to bring things back together that actually works for us, we're doing the same type of thing with what we're experiencing right now. And so the feelings of confusion and of uncertainty, and it's all very normal as part of the grieving process. And so I find it to be quite helpful for a number of people to use that languaging and to help them identify this as grief.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I like that a lot, because I think when we label it and we put the label on it that maybe they haven't been able to, then it normalizes it for them, and they can it's okay then, or I'm normal to be going through this process, and this is what other people are going through as well too.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's really powerful. And wow, okay. I'm really liking that, and I'm thinking of how I can integrate that more into with my own clients as well. Any other thoughts? Any other observations on what is going on with your clients, or how you're helping your clients?
I think, at the beginning of COVID-19 with the physical distancing, it was a lot more what I would call sort of crisis counseling, because it was so sudden and so abrupt. There, as in many crisis situations, it's kind of what I call the whirlwind of, I haven't got a clue, what to do next. I don't know how I'm going to land on this. So I found that at the beginning of COVID-19, therapy was sort of what I would call crisis therapy, where it was just saying, okay, you're working from home, what do you need, right? Like, and really identifying those needs and sort of putting those steps in place and helping to sort of center and ground clients
Yeah.
in the midst of that sort of chaotic period of time, to help them sort of figure out what they could do next to best help themselves.
Right.
And now we're kind of moving past that, right? We're further into the grief process, really, which is what has been most helpful for me in working with my clients is I'm sort
Yeah.
of doing a lot of grief therapy. Not traditional grief therapy, though.
Right. I,
Mm-hmm.
and as I think about what you're saying, and I love metaphors. I'm thinking of like the concept of camping. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
when you're camping and you've got to carry all of your stuff, you have to think, I'm just the basics, right?
Yeah.
I only need just the basics. But
Mm-hmm.
in our society, the way we are now, well, we've come to really like our luxuries, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We have a lot of luxuries, and I think we're grieving the loss of those luxuries.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I hear you saying in some way is that we have had to reevaluate what luxuries we really can do without. And it's kind of like
Yeah.
going back to the camping metaphor. What am I going to pack and use that I absolutely need, and what stuff is just too heavy for me to carry right now?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
And there's that reevaluation process that's taking place, I think, with people. Like, what is the most important? So, just to wrap up the conversation, then, Liane, this has been really
Mm-hmm.
good and insightful, even for me too. Um, what do you see as like the one thing or the two things that you hope or you think we collectively as a world, the human race, are going to take out of this 6-month pause that we've been put on?
Hmm. That's a big question.
It is, yeah. Yeah. I've heard other people say like thankfulness or an
Mm-hmm.
appreciation for the older generation. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of lessons that are going to come out of this. Hopefully, they have some staying power. What do you
Yes.
think one of the
Yeah.
big lessons might be for you?
Hmm. For myself, that's a good question. Yeah, I'm not sure that I've figured out what I'm exactly going to be learning through this. I, I mean, yeah, I hope that we're all learning more patience and more compassion for others. Certainly, as we see news on or stories on the news of different tragedies that are
Yeah.
happening, and realizing that this could happen to any one of us.
Hmm.
This virus certainly doesn't discriminate at
No.
all. So recognizing that and being really grateful for what we have and who we have in our lives is important. And unfortunately, I think, along with that, sometimes we see the other side of humanity showing up as well. And,
Yeah.
can we have compassion for the people who just can't manage, don't have coping skills, or don't have an ability to manage what is happening, and their way is to lash out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I am noticing there seems to be a little bit more of a temperature of compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly with our first responders, there's a lot of emphasis on being thankful for
Mm-hmm.
and appreciating and having compassion for those people that are putting their life on the line for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do hope that we can take that and it carries on even after this. We go back. Well, I don't want to say go back before we transition to the new reality.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that looks like, I'm not really sure. But compassion, we could all use more compassion. Compassion for
Absolutely.
ourselves,
Yes. Yeah.
and it does start with compassion for ourselves, and then compassion for other people. Do you have
Mm-hmm.
a quote or a joke or a funny story or Something nice and encouraging to end off the our conversation today?
I do. I thought, I don't have a funny story or a joke, but I thought I would share a poem that I
Great.
thought might be helpful to
Okay.
people in this time. The poem is called Let Yourself Rest.
Let yourself.
And it's by, yeah, Let Yourself Rest. It was written by Jeff Foster. And it goes, if you're exhausted, rest. If you don't feel like starting a new project, don't. If you don't feel the urge to make something new, just rest in the beauty of the old, the familiar, and the known. If you don't feel like talking, stay silent. If you're fed up with the news, turn it off. If you want to postpone something until tomorrow, do it. If you want to do nothing, let yourself do nothing today. Feel the fullness of the emptiness, the vastness of the silence, the sheer life in your unproductive moments. Time does not always need to be filled. You are enough simply in your being.
Mm. Mm. It's a great reflection.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. We don't have to be productive all the time, do we?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
sharing that. I love that.
You're welcome.
So
Thanks
that
for
was written
having
by
me.
Jeff Foster.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
nice. Maybe we can put that link down. I'm sure we can find it online somewhere. We could put that in the link as well too for people. And
Sure. Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
your practice again. How can we
Mm-hmm.
contact you? Find out more about you, Liane.
My website, I have two websites. My personal website is rethinkme.ca.
Yes.
And then the group practice that I'm in is wethrivewellness.ca.
Okay. So I will put
Mm-hmm.
those links as well in the bio so people know how to get a hold of you and reach out to you.
Wonderful.
Beautiful.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Transparent, and being
Thanks for
transparent
having
with
me.
us. And we will, well, maybe meet again in the future. Well, I know we'll meet
Definitely.
again in the future, but maybe we
Yes.
can have another conversation in the future.
That would be wonderful. I would look forward to that. Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay. Well,
Great.
you have a beautiful day. Enjoy the rest of your day. Get
Thanks,
some rest.
Kevin. Yeah, you as well. You as well. Take care
Okay.
now.
Take
Okay.
care. Bye for now.
Bye.
And that's where I'll cut it off. Oh. Oh. And she cut off. Okay. Stop video. And